If I were really cool, I'd tweet this out right now. Keeping it real time. But I have something more important to show you. Family pictures. This is my mom, my brother, my sister, and me. My mother is from Japan, and that's where I was born. Missing from this picture is the guy who took it. The guy my brother and I used to tease as the white guy at the end of the dinner table. Yes, my father's white, I admit it. To proof, he's out here in the audience somewhere. Yet, he's the reason I became an outlier. And I didn't just say outlaw, I said outlier. Which is to say, a person of color who grew up hiking and camping and continues to love and wants to protect the outdoors. Talk about a minority. My father was my scoutmaster at Troop 14 in Seattle, which is where I met my oldest, well, let's keep age out of this, my longest standing friend, Gordon McHenry, who I'm proud to say is the president and CEO of Solid Ground. Yeah. Right on. He's the one on the left, by the way. And in case you hadn't figured it out yet, Gordon's black. And there were other black kids in our troop, and other Asian Americans, and Native Americans. So being outside with people of color seemed normal. Until, dun dun dun, Gordon and I went to Seattle University. And there we had to practically drag our classmates of color into the outdoors. I can still remember the nervous tension in the car rides out. Somebody would say, "We're all going to get lynched, man," you know, like the guy in Aliens. And I'd look in the back seat at our friend David Black, who actually is black, and he'd always start humming this tune. Right? Thank you for getting that. This all percolated in the back of my mind until a few years ago when I started hiking and photographing the outdoors. And the more I did this, the more I noticed the outdoors looked a lot less like the outdoors of my youth. And more like this. You know, cold and white. Or like this. I actually saw 3 Confederate flags just outside North Cascades National Park recently. Not very inviting if you're a person of color. Which is really counter to the way this country is going, let me tell you. In 2 to 3 decades, the majority of the United States is going to be non-white. There's no stopping this. Already there are more non-white babies than white babies being born every day. Before you know it, most of this country is going to look like this. You know, devilishly handsome and younger. But this impending non-white majority does not have a relationship with the outdoors. Remember, I'm an outlier and an outlaw. Gordon is an outlier. My daughter Sasha is an outlier. It's not baked into our cultures anymore. It's been baked out. Every community of color in America can point to a negative connotation to the outdoors that was introduced to us by our own country. Think about it. With African Americans, it's slavery. Japanese Americans, internment. Chinese Americans, coolie labor on the railroads. Latinos, migrant work. And Native Americans, shoot, they had the whole outdoors just taken away from them. And then had to suffer the indignity of having all the mountains, lakes, and rivers renamed after white guys who supposedly discovered them. I wrote an opinion piece this summer for the New York Times. You might have read it. To set it up, I reached out to people of color in Southeast Seattle, which is where I grew up and still live. It's the most diverse part of our city. It's also a place where we look at Mount Rainier every clear day. So I asked my neighbors, You look at this mountain all the time. Have you actually been there? All but one said no. And they asked me, well, what's even up there? I told them, there's a national park up there. And they said, well, what's a national park? Is it a lawn? Are there picnic tables? See, they're trying to equate it to stuff they're used to seeing in the city. So then they say, well, why should I drive 1, 2, 3 hours for that? I'm all good here grilling some dogs, and here I have a bathroom. God only knows what's up there. Here's how deep this runs. I'm doing a story about a pair of bilingual Latino interns in a national park out west. I asked them, how do you talk to your parents about what you intend to do outdoors? And Nancy says, there aren't even words in Spanish to explain herself.
We never talk about this in Spanish, there's no discussion about going hiking, so it's una caminata, and then I asked my parents, how do you say hiking, what does this mean, and I acted out, they're like, oh, una caminata, or tienda de campaña, these words, I have never used them in Spanish, because there's just no discussion about this at all in my family.
And Sal, like Nancy, is the child of immigrant parents who came from Mexico to work several back-breaking jobs in the field to give their children a better life. They can't even wrap their minds around what Sal is trying to do.
So you choose to sleep on the floor, you like that? We started from that for you not to be doing that, and now you're doing it because you want to. So it's a weird concept for them.
So now I'm sounding the alarm. Because of the way this country is headed and where our planet is headed, diversity in the outdoors is a self-preservation issue for all of us. So where's the urgency? How long are we going to wait to start protecting our future? See, the Civil Rights Act was signed 50 years ago. Well, I know it's closer to 51, but I'm rounding down. Same as the Wilderness Act. And where are we on civil rights after 50 years? Where are we on wilderness after 50 years, for that matter? If we apply that 50-year timeline to our planet, and assuming we only get as far in 50 years as we did on civil rights and the wilderness, in 20 to 30 years, when an indifferent, non-white majority takes over, this planet's already cooked. So I keep wondering, what's going to be the tipping point? Believe me, no one ever does anything about diversity and inclusion unless there's a gun put to their heads. In the 60s, there was Black Power. 50 years later, there's Black Lives Matter. Folks finally start getting the point and say, oh my God, we better do something about this. So what's the tipping point? Where's our Ferguson for diversity in the outdoors? Where's our Watts, for that matter? You guys remember, burn, baby, burn? Come to think of it, it seemed like this state and the entire West was burning to the ground this whole summer. Last I looked, there have been 9.5 million acres that have burned in this country in 2015. Isn't it about time to say, every life matters? If you can't breathe, it doesn't matter what color you are. Can I get an amen on that? Thank you.